Hello there, welcome to my YouTube channel Since Nightingale. In this tutorial video, I'm going to be showing you the pattern I used to recreate this Shein ruched draped dress with the built-up collar. Let's go. So first of what I did was to lay my brown paper on the floor. I also connected this with the paper tape to make it longer. Then I went to plot the full measurement for the skirt area, that's the bottom part. And then afterwards, I divided this paper into two equal parts. That's 20 inches on the left and on the right. So afterwards, I went further to plot my hip line and my upper knee line, right? So I placed my measuring tape and marked 10 inches. So the measurement for this person that I'm working with, the waist to the hip line is 10 inches. So after marking this, I took my long ruler and connected the lines across and marked hip line. Then I went 10 inches downwards again from that hip line to get my upper knee measurement or upper knee line, and then I went to do that and marked it upper knee. Then afterwards, I marked the waistline from the center line that you can see, the hip line and the upper knee line, and that's what you can see that have come out now. Afterwards, I took my scissors and I cut out this first part, and this is what you have. Then from the hip line, I took 1 inch downwards and 1 inch upwards in two places to be able to get 4 lines. So I cut the first line, the second line as you can see, the third line on the hip line, and the fourth line just below the hip line. And then placed on that other part of brown paper that you can see, I secured it with the paper tape so that I can get the pleats that I want on that hip area, as you have seen or as you had seen in the first picture. Alright, so this is it. After doing this, I cut out the first part and also cut out the other part. I mean, one part would be the left side and the other part for the right side. I placed again on the first paper so that I can get the pleats area. After doing this, I used an arrow upwards and downwards to signify where I will be pleating, and then separated the paper and marked that left. So this is my right side, right? I recreated that marking that I had done at the other side after flipping over, and then marked this as my right side of the skirt. And we are almost ready. So I took my paper, rather I took my pins and started securing the pleats so that I can pleat that and see what this pattern will look like when placed together. And this is it. This is what the skirt looks like. So let me give you an overview or aerial view of what this pattern looks like. So this is it. Now let's zoom in. So if you can remember, the star that I showed you earlier had like an opening on the center part that also had a curve. So I mean, the front part of the skirt is not all sharp. The left side is sharp, but then the other side on the right is not sharp, and there's a slit. So let's put our slits, right? So the waistline downwards, or the shoulder to downwards where the slit will be, is 36 inches. So I mean shoulder measurement downwards 36 inches. Then I went on to take out 4 inches on that part, as you can see, and then connected it to where the slit stops and traced out my curve with the curve ruler. I traced out again the second time with the curve ruler and with the marker so you can properly see this. I mean from that curve all the way to where the slit stops. Then remember that there is a drape at the center part. This is the drape. The drape is 9 inches wide, 9 inches because I will be closing on the left and on the side by ½ an inch inwards, and by the time I've done that, I'll be left with just 7 inches wide, which would be folded this way and will be used for the drape that you can see just in front. I'm showing you this inner part to see where I'm going to sew that drape on, and the method I'm going to be using to ensure that at the end of the day the slit is still rebuilt. So we're done with this pattern for the skirt. Let's proceed to seeing how to recreate the built-up neckline. So first off, what I did was to fold this paper. I mean this brown paper is on fold, and then I marked 4 inches upwards, as you can see that I've done that. Then I took out 3 inches for the neckline and then marked the shoulder measurement. After doing that, I got my shoulder slope and then went downwards by 3 inches, used my curve ruler to connect the 3 inches on the shoulder line downwards, and there you have it. Then I went on to mark my half length measurements. It's 18 inches, but with 1 inch sewing allowance will give us 19 inches, and that's the line that you can see. So that's the half length that you can see now. Alright, so the wideness of the sleeves that I'll be working with is 14 inches wide, but then with the sewing allowance will give me 15 inches. So I marked 14 inches from that line downwards to get my 15 inches. Then the waist area that I'm working with is 34 inches. Divide this by 2 will give you 17. 17 divided by 2 will give you 8.5 inches. So I've marked that out, and that's what you can see after connecting this line. The paper tape I worked with is shorter than the length, the sleeve length I'll be working with. The sleeve length I'll be working with is 22 inches long. So I went on to take 3.5 inches from that point that you can see and connected the line. So when I place this on the fabric when cutting, I would cut out an extra 4 inches to make up for my 22 inches. So let's go to the built-up collar. I placed my measuring tape on that vertical line, and then I measured out 1 inch. I took out 1 inch away from that line. Then I went on to measure 3 inches from the start line of the fold upwards, and I've connected the dots with a short ruler. Then I'm going to divide this space into 2 equal parts, which will give me 1.5 inches. I placed my measuring tape and secured 1.5 inches on that area, marked upwards, and used my short ruler to connect the dots. After doing this, I placed my measuring tape on that vertical line again to get 1.5 inches upwards. So now I've marked 1.5 inches on that vertical line, and I'm going to connect the lines, and there you have it. Then I'm going to place my measuring tape. Remember, I had taken 1 inch away from that slope, right? So I'm going to use my short ruler now to connect that point to the midpoint of that 1.5 inches. Alright, so after doing this, I placed my measuring tape on that straight line and went for the depth of the neckline. The depth of the neckline that I'll be working with now is 9 inches, and so I marked 9 inches and then used my curve ruler to trace out the point where the inbuilt collar, or rather built-up collar, starts from downwards. Then I picked my short ruler again and connected the lines. So we're done with the back pattern. I'm going to open this up for you to see what it looks like, and then close back up and place on the brown paper that I'll be using for the back pattern. So this is what it looks like, and let's flip back. So after flipping back, I placed on the brown paper. As you can remember, we worked with 4 inches upwards, and I'm going to mark that line on the back measurement. After doing that, the pointy part, or the pointed part on the front pattern, I measured it and then used that to connect the lines, and that's the back area, the neck area at the back, and we're done. So I'm going to use my scissors now to trace out this pattern for the back across the waist area, sleeves area, and the neck area. This is the front and this is the back. So now let's replicate this on the main fabric, right? So this is not on fold. I first started with cutting the skirt area, starting with the left pattern. I opened up the pleats that I used the bobbin pins to secure, and then flipped open wide so I can get the accurate measurements. I secured that with my sellotape. Downwards, I gave out, or I left out, 1 inch sewing allowance for the tip of the skirt. You would see that when I'm cutting, but on the sides I made use of 1/2 inch sewing allowance for this purpose. So I'm using my marker now to trace out 1 inch away from the tip of the skirt downwards, and I'm going to now cut. So I've cut that out, and remember I said 1/2 inch on both sides of the skirt. You have to be very careful with this process. That's why I'm trying as much as possible to make sure that it sits properly on the main fabric. I used pins to also secure this on the main fabric so it doesn't shift and I get the accurate measurement. So I'm going to be replicating the same cutting for the right side of the skirt. I opened it up as well, and then took out 1 inch sewing allowance from the tip of the skirt and 1/2 inch sewing allowance from the side and from the upper part of the skirt. I would secure this with the pin, or I secure this with a pin so it also doesn't shift away from the dress. I worked with a very, very silky material that can easily move on my cutting area. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. So we're done with this part, and we're going to go to the upper pattern to cut up. Remember I said the sleeves is longer than what I have. So I'm going to add 4 inches to what I have on the pattern to give me my sleeves measurement, which is 22 inches. So on this as well, I took out half an inch with the measurement that I have, or the pattern that I have, to get my pattern on the fabric for the upper part of the front part. I'm going to also replicate the same for the back pattern as well. So this is the paper on the main fabric. Remember, 4 inches away from the pattern, depending on what your sleeve length is. I mean, some will prefer this length, some want a much longer length. I'm working the 3/4 length for the person, and that's why I'm using this method where I'm adding this much fabric to the sleeves for the upper area. So we're done with this. I'm also going to cut this pattern on the flap, but for the flap I have already cut out the exact measurements on the brown paper, so I won't be adding any addition to the pattern that I have, except for the fact that the length of the pattern is it's the exact one, so I'm just going to be adding the sewing allowance for the up and for the bottom part. So for the front part, remember, I'm not lining this material, this style. I'm going to be using half lining or piece of material to turn this inside out, and that's what I'm doing now. So I mean, I'm cutting that part that covers up the neckline and the built-up collar line. I'm stopping at that point, and I'm going to be tracing out. This will just help in turning the collar area inside out. I'm going to also be doing the same for the back pattern. I will just trim out about 6 inches long, or 6 inches, yes, 6 inches long piece of material to be able to enable me turn this inside out. The kind of closing that I also did for this was the inside closing, so I mean, you won't see the area of joining when you look at the fabric inwards. And this is it. So I'm trimming this out on the fabric that I'll be using to turn in the back measurements. I've worked with 6 inches, like I mentioned. So first off, what I did on the sewing machine was to join this lining that I'll be using to turn the neck area and the plunging V neckline area inside out. So I'm closing the edges. Some might decide to weave the edges instead, but for me, I decided to sew this first rather than weave it. So I've sewn this. I'm also going to do the same for the back area, or for the back pattern, just closing out the edges before I join together. So after joining this, the tip of this lining piece of fabric that I'm going to use to line, I now closed it shoulder to shoulder, and then I went on to also close the main fabric shoulder to shoulder and the neckline to the neckline. I mean, the built-up neckline for the lining, I closed this separately from the built-up neckline for the main fabric. You can see now that I'm trying to close this on the fabric first. So I've sewn it from the neckline, the built-up neckline, towards the sleeve area downwards. I'm going to be doing this for the left and the right. It's after I'm done with this, I will now place the piece of lining that I've cut out and joined together, that I will now use to trace out the neck area and the V-neck area. I hope you understand this explanation. So I am closing the second part of the sleeves, and after doing this, I'm now going to place the piece of fabric that I had mentioned that is for this neckline, to line the neckline and cover it up. I'm going to be doing an inside closing so this doesn't show. So what I'm doing now is to close the shoulder to shoulder for the lining. I've placed the second shoulder and I'm doing that. So after this, now I'm going to place on the main fabric and then join. So you can see I opened up, see how I opened up the top, and then I placed the lining, connecting the joining on each other so it's very neat. I mean, the V is aligning, the V on the lining is aligning with the main fabric, same as the curve for the built-up collar. Everything is aligning, and then I'm joining. By the time I flip over, if you look inwards, you will see the right side of the lining and not the wrong side of the lining. So you can see, if you can notice this slowly, the fabric is turned to the wrong side when joining. So when I flip over, you'd see the right side. It's just so that it makes the joining as neat as possible. So what I'm doing right now is to join the lining with the main fabric. So I went on to take my scissors to cut out, notch the v-neck area, so when I iron it out, it sits properly. And there you have it. Our neckline is complete. Remember to also sew the fabric on the lining to make it sit properly on the lining. So let's proceed to closing out the sleeves area. So I turned this in by half an inch sewing allowance. At the end of the day, 1 inch sewing allowance has gone out from the first part, the left side and the right side. So I'm closing the sleeves area. I'm going to do this for both parts of the sleeves, so that after doing this I can flip over and then join the entire body together. It has this, the sleeves is like this boo-boo kind of sleeves, or batwing. It's going to give this batwing style at the end of the day, if you can remember the style that I showed you at the beginning. So now let's proceed to the skirt area. I'm going to close the tip of the skirt. That's the left side and the right side as well. I'm going to close the tip, and I'm also going to close the tip of the back side of the skirt, which is what I'm doing now. After doing that, I'm going to I just showed you the curve side, so I'm going to start curving that part of the skirt downwards towards the end. And after doing that, I closed the flap for the drape at the center of the style. I went to the ironing board to iron out all the parts that needs to be straightened out, and then went back to the sewing machine to start joining these parts together. So first off, I joined the body of the blouse, or the upper part of the style, and that's what I'm doing now. So I've joined the first part. I'm going to the second part to join together. After joining this, I proceeded to joining together the skirt. Alright, so after joining that, I started sewing down the pleats for both parts of the skirt. The left side and the right side. This process would go first before joining to the flap. So after doing this, now we're going to join this part of the fabric with the flap. Remember, I had already measured out 9 inches at first. By the time I closed this, I got 7 inches. So first off, I'm going to sew the flap on the skirt from the up part downwards before I now sew the right side of the skirt on the flap. So first off, let's sew the first flap on the left side of the skirt, and that's what I'm doing now. So you close together and sew downwards to the end of the skirt. So now that we've sewn downwards to the end of the skirt, I placed the right side of the skirt and then sewed to the point where the slit stops. Remember, the right side has the slit, the left side doesn't have the slit. So we're sewing downwards to where the slit stops, and there you have it. We're done with this. Now let's flip open. Remember, this presses downwards, right? So I'm going to centralize this using my measuring tape to get the center of this, open it up, pin it down, and then sew that flap downwards. And that's what I'm doing in this video. I've sewn this downwards now. We're now going to connect the back part of the skirt with the front part of the skirt to make this come together. So now I'm joining the front part of the skirt with the back part of the skirt. Afterwards, we're now going to join the upper body and the downward side, or the upper body and the downside or bottom part of this design. And eventually I'm going to be showing you what this looks like afterwards, right? So let's join this together. And here you have it. This is our style. This is our duplicated or replicated Shein Ruched Draped dress with a built-up collar. At the back side, I'm going to be zooming in. I sewed in the elastic on the waist side at the back side, so that this stretches on the body and has this gathers effect at the end of the day when it's worn. And let me go back to the front. You see the built-up collar, you see the neckline, plunging neckline, you see the drape in front, and the slit as well, and the ruched part of the dress as well on the side. I hope the style was as educative as possible for you. If you have any questions, do not forget to leave them down below in the comment section. If you have other methods that you can explore to bring this creation to life, I'll also love to read from you in the comment section. If you haven't subscribed, now is the time for you to click on that subscribe button and it will make me happy. You can also share this video to all of your social media platforms so the persons can learn a thing or two from this pattern. From me to you, it's keep creating magic. It's Nightingale. Bye bye.